Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Off-Doc TV. This TV brings to you analysis of what happens at the Port of Mombasa, what happens along the supply chain, what happens in the warehousing world, what happens in the transport systems, both rail, both road, and of course, the warehousing at both inland terminals and the CFSs that move their cargo from the Port of Mombasa to their inland destinations. Remember in our last analysis, we talked about efficiencies of the port determined by the vessel turnaround time. These are the key performance indicators that determines the efficiency of the port. We also talked about the cargo dwell time, which also one of the key performance indicators. Remember, the cargo dwell time is a factor in determining the efficiency of the ship arriving and getting a berth immediately upon arrival. The biggest challenges for any port in the world is the vessel congestion. Vessel congestions is brought about by the inefficiency of the port to move their cargo real time, efficiently, upon landing and evacuation to their inland destinations. When this fails, then many vessels are kept waiting out there, waiting for the few berths that would open up for the vessels to come alongside. And in this kind of inefficiency, there's always the biggest threat by the shipping lines to impose certain levies against the port for the delays of their vessels waiting to discharge. These are called the vessel delay surcharges. The vessel delay surcharges is an imposed tax on each container or on each cargo being discharged from that vessel because of the time that has been wasted waiting for vessel to come alongside. In the late 1990s and early 2000, the Port of Mombasa faced perpetual congestion. These congestions came about because the port was not even prepared for the advent of containerization. Suddenly, even the loose cargo are being containerized and moving to the Port of Mombasa. And therefore, the huge volumes of containers arriving caught the Port of Mombasa on flat foot. And therefore, they were unable to arise to occasion and ensure that this cargo is moved efficiently from the vessels upon discharging and moved within the port and evacuation through to their final destinations. These challenges became huge over a period until 2000, when now congestions were becoming the order of the day. As many as 15 vessels could be kept waiting for only 3 berths. And this caused a lot of complaints, a lot of frustrations for the shippers and the shipping lines, and also for the government agencies that were operating within the port. As a result of that, the port management and the government decided that a solution must be found to ease this congestion. And a model for development of inland terminals or inland container freight stations was developed. I think this was borrowed from the port of Nhava Sheva, which initially had the first container freight stations established way back in the 1990s. Yeah, and therefore the Port of Mombasa developed that jointly. KPA, jointly with the Kenya Revenue Authority, came up with a new model of licensing the container freight stations that would handle the overflowing cargo that were coming to the Port of Mombasa. Remember, the Port of Mombasa only had one terminal, the old container terminal. It had not even started developing the new container terminal, and therefore port congestion was becoming a big challenge. Above that, to compound on all these challenges, the process for clearing cargo in the port was long, was cumbersome, was frustrating, and very costly to the shippers. Remember, clearing one cargo, the Mombasa Port Release Order required something like 42 stamps from the cargo interveners, from the government agencies. Yeah, and it would take days on end to clear cargo from the Port of Mombasa, and this raised the cost of shipment through the Port of Mombasa. Now, KPA had its strategic plan, and together with the KRA, they came up with the concept of container freight stations, which would later on become a panacea for the ever perennial port congestion. And with it, establishment of 7 container freight stations was done, licensed by the Kenya KRA, and KP was mandated to regulate the nomination process, for which each CFS would get its cargo nomination, the volumes based on its capacity, based on its equipment capacity, and based on the efficiency levels of these CFSs, and also to ensure that moving the cargo to the CFS would not impact negatively on the cost of shipping of that cargo through the port of Mombasa and also through the CFSs. And therefore, the tariffs for CFSs was regulated by Kenya Ports Authority. That was the beginning, and there was order, there was discipline, and the port efficiency was renewed. Yeah, there were a few vessels coming onto the port that were waiting. Yeah, and the cargo dwell time had improved tremendously until the second container terminal was built and more CFSs were established and licensed, and there was now there became a scramble for the volumes from the port. This scramble degenerated into cutthroat competition. It degenerated into skullduggery. It degenerated into unscrupulous business. It turned the industry into an underworld kind of business, and turmoil grew along the industry. Up to today, as we speak, and I think this TV analysis would be able to open up to the public what goes on under the surface when you import your cargo until the point the cargo comes to your doorstep. You have no clue whatsoever what goes on in the port. So this will be an eye-opener for most of the people who uses the port of Mombasa. Remember the price of the commodity you get at the shelf. The price of commodity at the shelf is much determined by the entire logistics supply chain. The cost of every component of the logistics, the cost of shipment from maritime shipping, the cost of the port operations and its inherent costs, the cost of the transport system, that's the road transport system or the rail transport system, or even the pipeline, and also connectivity through the inland waterways, through Lake Victoria, to neighboring countries like Port Bell, like Mwanza, Musoma regions of northern Tanzania region, and also connectivity through cross borders into southern Sudan, and also to southern of Ethiopia. All this determines the cost of what will determine the final product price that you would buy at the shelf. Therefore, we must critically look into every component into this industry so that we are able to pinpoint and look at where the fault line starts, and also put our fingers exactly who and where the fault line lies so that we can find the solutions to the efficient movement of goods and services into the port, and also for export moving outside the port to export destinations. Now, so that we don't deviate and lose focus on today's topic, let's go back to the CFS operations. Now, the CFS grew to 21 CFSs. But among the major CFSs, we have outer ports, we have got Portside, we've got Focus, we've got Boss Freight, we've got regional center, we have got MCT, that's Mombasa Container Terminal, we've got MICT, we've got multiple container terminal, we have Console Base, is also, we have got compact CFSs. These were the major CFSs that started operations in the port, and they built efficiencies of the port until other CFSs were now licensed, and the numbers grew. With the growth of the increasing numbers, then the scramble for the port volumes became another hell. It introduced stiff competition, cutthroat competition. It brought in skullduggery, unscrupulous dealings, and KPA was not left out of this. Yeah, KPA lost control entirely on the regulations and the nominations of these containers to the CFSs. But I must praise these CFSs initially on this channel, because if it was not for these CFSs, the perpetual congestion in the port would still be with us up to today. So this CFSs just needs proper regulatory system, needs no government intervention. It doesn't need no government functionaries to get involved, and they can run properly and efficiently and professionally left on their own. As we speak today, there's a lot of interference in the way the nomination of the cargo for the port of Mombasa, passing through the port of Mombasa, even for transit destinations. In my next video, I'll be talking about the stiff competition arising out of grabbing the ever-growing voluminous cargo going to Southern Sudan. Remember that after independence of South Sudan, the Sudan government or the country started on a journey of rebuilding its country. Constructions, projects have increased tremendously over this period of time. And therefore, the volumes of cargo going to South Sudan has increased drastically. And this has attracted stiff competitions for this cargo until it is drawing in the involvement of the government. Remember, recently, there was a statement from the government that cargo to South Sudan can now be freely be released from the port of Mombasa. I'll dwell into this in my next video, because this is where the real problem lies. Yeah, cargo coming through the port of Mombasa cannot be determined by the government, because not all cargo is government cargo. Yeah, we've got private importers both in Kenya and in South Sudan who must determine where they want to clear their cargo. But again, on the other hand, governments have got their mandate to ensure that the infrastructure developed to support the logistics chain is fully utilized. I'm talking about the use of the standard gauge railway in comparison with the use of the road network system. Remember, if one full block train carries 108 TUs, that is 20 feet equivalent units, then how many trucks on lorries, how many lorries will be moving the same number of volumes of containers through the road system? Will require for 20-foot container lorries, then will require 108 lorries plying the road network system. And therefore the issue and the element of road damage, road carnage, is addressed adequately if the standard gauge railway is used efficiently. But we'll be dwelling into that in our next videos. For now, we want to focus on the role of this CFS and why we think, in our opinion as of Doc TV, that what we need is just a regulatory system that will ensure that each and every CFS get adequate volumes based on their individual facilities and capacities and efficiency levels, like it used to be done in the beginning when we started the movement of cargo through the CFSs. Now KPA has already developed the third container terminal. That means it has got capacity. But remember, the port is not a storage facility. Storage is not a core business of Kenya Ports Authority. And therefore, cargo dwell time must be minimized as part of the key performance indicators and efficiency levels of the Port of Mombasa. Therefore, the volumes coming in through all these other new terminals The increased number of berths has also attracted more vessels, bigger vessels, by the way, and more volumes are now moving into the port of Mombasa. The government must allow the CFSs to move in and take this cargo and move them away from the port to ensure efficiency levels are moving on and improving on the efficiency of the port. The last standings of port efficiencies was that Kenya has gone down in the rankings of the efficiency of the ports, especially in Africa. Even the port of Dar es Salaam was now ranked higher than the port of Mombasa. This should be a wake-up call for those involved in the movement of cargo through the port of Mombasa. This should be a wake-up call on the KPA. This should be a wake-up call on the government Ministry of Transport. And this should be a wake-up call for all the other advocacies of the movement of cargo. I'm talking about the East African, East African Commercial Shipping. I'm talking about the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I'm talking about the Shippers Council. I'm talking about the Clearing Forwarding Associations, KIFWA. I'm talking about the CFS associations. Unless they raise up and raise their voices and compel all the other players to ensure that involvement of other non-players in the industry is causing a lot of harm to the efficiency and movement of goods and cargo along the corridor. In this analysis, we pinpoint critical areas that affect the movement, the CFSs. For instance, some of the CFSs don't have capacity in terms of transport and moving this cargo from the port. They have got only two days free period to move them from the port into their facilities. There's also the challenges at the facilities where negotiations on the storage days are not standardized, and therefore some CFSs are charging more, some are charging less, and therefore compromising on the industry standards. Therefore, it is important that the regulatory system of the Kenya Ports Authority and the Kenya Revenue Authority is put in place to ensure that this cargo moving through the CFSs, because they help a lot in decongesting the port, is also regulated so that it doesn't make the port of Mombasa a very, very expensive port and plays a second fiddle to the other competing ports of Port of Dar es Salaam. And to ensure that also we build the efficiency at the port of Mombasa, then it is important that we look at where exactly we have gone wrong. We must look back and see what mistakes, where did the rain start beating us, so that we know so that we can now correct all these anomalies that has been happening at the port of Mombasa. To add on to these challenges is also the processes going on at the port of Mombasa against the movement of cargo moving in and out of the port. Almost all the ports of the world are now automating their systems. There are different systems, there are different softwares bought on shelves out there that automates all the processes. At KPA, we have the Quartos system. Quartos system is now moribund, outdated, does not serve the purpose anymore. Quartos system can only do less than 30% of its capacity. And because its usage has not been 100% from the initial stages, it is time now to look critically onto it and remove it and replace it or update it to give the necessary system that will improve the efficiency of cargo movement into the port. Quartos can only deal with the planning aspect, not even vessel planning. It can only deal with resource planning, and even it cannot allocate resources adequately as per the Quartos system. The documentation aspect of Quartos is what I can see is working well. Only 30%. That means the billing aspect, the interfacing with the SSR system. Only this is what is working. The gate systems are working. But the planning for vessel planning, berth planning, resource planning is dead on quarters. And therefore, the KPA must move very fast to ensure that its processes are 100% automated, end-to-end usage that will guarantee not only the auditing of the movement and the processes of the cargo in the port, but also the billing aspect, so that there's very little leakages of revenue when the system is not 100% efficient. But that is also another topic for another day. As for today, I still hail the CFSs. I still want to see in our analysis, we would like to see support given to all these CFSs, because they have done a tremendous job. They have done a tremendous job in decongesting the port of Mombasa. Only thing they need is regulatory mechanism that will ensure that this movement of cargo from the port through the land system, road, through the rail system, within the destination up to the doorstep of the importer. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to this channel so that we can send you notification. Touch on the notification bell. Also do a like for this analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again next time, this is Off Doc TV. Goodbye, and let's meet again in the next video.